It really happened. That was not a dream. It is Tuesday, January 21st, 2025. Your Buckeyes are national champions. Now, we could end the show right there, and it would be the best show I've ever done. But that's not going to happen. I've got the Dean, Bill Kurelic, coming up. Mark Porter, the Grand Poobah. I was here last night. For those of you who were with us on our post-game pod, What We Learned Live, I had to get the show started because Dave was down on the field getting scarlet and gray confetti out of his hair. He took over after that, and we went and had a great show. The whole band was there. However, Mando is now what I like to call the New Year, New Me Mando of Champions, because you here use it at Bucknuts. The whole body deodorant. What do you love about Mando? Well, you win the championship when you wear it. Want to smell like a champion? Mando. Created by a doctor who saw firsthand how normal BO was being misdiagnosed and mistreated, kind of like our offense was at one point. And then we re-diagnosed and retreated it, and look, we the champs. Mando starter pack is perfect for new customers. Solid stick deodorant, cream tube deodorant, 2 free products of your choice, free shipping. And as a special offer for our listeners, new customers get $5 off a starter pack with our exclusive code. That equates to over 40% off your starter pack. Use code Bucknuts at shopmando.com. The Dean, Bill Kurelic, the Grand Poobah, Mark Porter. Holy crap. As I told the people before the show started here, that was not a dream. All of the hullabaloo, stress, enjoyment, roller coaster ride, whatever you want to call it, ended with Ohio State leaving, no doubt. There is no question Ohio State just completed the toughest road in history to a championship. Wins over Tennessee, Oregon, Texas, and then Notre Dame. Many ways we can go with this. I ran out of thank yous last night. I ran out of congratulations. There's so much to go around. If we do that twice, if people get credit more than once, and if we get redundant, that's just too bad. Bill, you've been doing this job around Ohio State for years. And you've seen some great things happen. I was fortunate to be in Dallas the last time they won the championship. They did it again in the first edition of the new playoff. Just try and put things in perspective, and maybe at the end give a little taste of what you think this could do for recruiting and even the transfer portal.
Well, my first thoughts were just how happy I am for the players, number one. When you do what I do, I used to say back in the day, at least, that if you've seen someone play for Ohio State in the last 35 years or so, I talked to that guy when he was in high school. I can't quite say that now because of the transfer portal, and Ohio State gets players that they didn't really recruit when they were in high school. So I didn't necessarily talk to every single one of them, but a high majority of them I did. And you get to know them really well. I got to know Jack Sawyer really, really well during the recruiting process as an example. I'm just happy for those guys. It's really been fun to see what has happened with this team this year. And for the staff, you get to know the staff too. And just happy for those people. As an ex-coach, some people, I have a little bit of an understanding of the pressure these coaches are under. And I know they make a lot of money, but it's immense, the pressure they're under, specifically Ryan Day. Just happy for those people. I've done this for almost 40 years now, and it's only, I believe, the second time that I've seen a national championship as part of that time frame of doing this. So it is a big deal. And then I thought, how far have things come since that Michigan game, mood-wise, when everything was gloom and doom. I mean, it has come a long, long way in a short period of time. My thought is excitement. You mentioned recruiting, Dan. I would say, if you want to see a little bit, take a look at the story I just posted a little bit ago this morning on recruits reacting and what they've said. Sincere Johnson, they're number one in my recruitment. Micah Rhodes, a 2028 running back, one of the best in the country, said, it's early, but Ohio State's in my top 5 now. And some other comments that this does nothing but help recruiting. As one Ohio State coach told me in the not too distant past, he said, I don't know exactly how much it means, how to quantify it exactly, walking into the building of a great high school player or the home of a great high school player with that O on my shirt or on my sweater. But he said, I know it means something. I know it means a lot. Well, it means even more now. You have that O, and then you have the NC, National Championship. So it really does mean something, and it will absolutely help recruiting, no doubt about it whatsoever. And then I got to make one last shout out. That would be to my now 4-year-old grandson, Grayson William Kurelic, turns 4 years old today, and he wakes up to an Ohio State national championship.
Mark, I was just looking at statistics here. I'll put this in context. Quinshon Judkins, 1,082 yards rushing. Travion Henderson, 1,041 yards rushing. Jeremiah Smith, 1,315 yards receiving. Emeka Egbuka, 1,011 yards receiving. They had 2 running backs and 2 wide receivers go over 1,000 yards. Quite a statistical, I don't want to say anomaly, but I've never even heard of such a thing. Sure, they played more games, but your thoughts on what you watched? You probably paid more attention to the Buckeyes play for play this season than any other season in your life, given the fact you had to break them down on film. Certainly wasn't disappointing from that respect. Just your thoughts, putting everything in context.
I think it's really cool that all of our thoughts are on record throughout this year. We can't hide from what we said. We can't go back and say, whatever. Each week we had to weigh in on this. And I hats off to this group here. I mean, it's been a pretty positive ride. I think we've all handled the ups and downs of the season. Bill went back to Michigan. How about let's go back to Missouri? That was this time last year. I mean, that was one of the worst games where it looked like a team didn't show up. It looked like that nobody was coming back, and you were losing seniors, and you get that. I had to like maybe kill somebody to get that ball. I think the Nike people told me they made 20 balls for the national championship. Make it 24, and we'll just leave it there.
Right on.
But if you go to Big Game Sports, you can order those footballs there. They were selling them for every team that was in the national championship. Okay, so shameless plug there. Back to this whole thing. It really was a dream season. You kind of feel the magic, as it's happening last night, and you're putting a bow on it. That wow, I can't believe you're a fan of this team, and it just happens. And I follow so many teams, whether it's teams locally or teams my kids are on. And every now and then you have these seasons where everything just bounces your way and goes right. And this was it. And Dan, you kind of said it, like a lot of the stuff we're going to talk about, everybody has beat to death and talked about, and how many different, I'd love to be the profound person that's going to say something different and unique to everybody. But I just remember that Missouri feeling, and it literally building day by day, piece by piece from there. Caleb Downs, McLaughlin, and all these people that showed up and made this possible. This is the new age of college football. We're not going back to an old way where Igbenos and people like that and Judkins aren't going to be added to a team every year. What presents lie ahead? What's nice is you just proved that system worked. The $20 million roster, the bringing in free agents, the plug-and-play guys to add to your core. So now that system's going to be copied. but you're also going to have the lead in the game plan, much like the Niners and Cowboys had the lead back in the day when they started spending and they had a nice run before anyone could catch them. This may be your golden age where it's real easy to recruit players from other teams, high school and college, to come plug your holes. In fact, there may be a waiting list where you're holding them off and saying, you know what, don't hit the portal. We're already maxed out with this roster here. I think the 12-team playoff system, when the game started, Team 7 versus Team 8, and you're like, what? That's not the way this is supposed to be. For years, we had a committee telling us who the top 2 teams were, or the top 4 teams. And I just wonder, like everybody else, how many national championships would have been different if you had a 12-team and let it be settled on the field. Does that feel better inside that it got to be settled in the field for fans and everybody? Or is that the way we want it from now on? I mean, the road Ohio State had to go on, Bill. I mean, I would have
argued.
You know what? And it shows what we did to Notre Dame that, their road wasn't very tough. There was a balance of power. I said it. Oregon versus Ohio State may have been a national championship game, round 2. I thought that was going to be, and then the Texas game happened. But there were 2 games I feel were bigger and stronger and more Titanic-like than maybe Notre Dame. I mean, we maybe cheapened that game by the way you put it on them so early, made it like, oh, this is whatever. Those other games were big boy football games. And this is one of those things, you can't take this from Ohio State because of that toughest road. I mean, the way if Notre Dame would have won it, there'd be people like, well, they kind of avoided this, that, and the other.
They would have beaten Ohio State and Georgia.
Yeah, I mean, and really, I'm not trying to take. I'm just spitballing. Now, the coaches. I want to be. Was it Michael Irvin or Des Bryant? It was like, I want the same authority that you reported
Not what he
that
said.
he was dead. But
Not what he said. I'll tell you what he said. Same intensity. And he said it outside of his lawyer's car when he was acquitted. And he's like, will you report on me getting off as much as you report on me getting busted with hookers and blow in a hotel?
I knew you would be able to fill in any gaps
Same
I had on that. Yeah. But I feel like that for that guy, of all the coaches who took the brunt of this early on, and, there were sputters last year with, but wow. I mean, and he's got some momentum in his back pocket to go recruit now. So hats off to Coach Fry. That offensive line kept maybe the cleanest pocket for a quarterback of any offensive line in any championship run ever. Will Howard stood back there and busted off spiral after spiral with no one in his face. And I mean, it really, that's an impressive job. I mean, that offensive line, and especially because he had to plug a couple holes and people really started putting dirt on the grave then. I wish those people would, issue their apology with the same intensity. Coach Kelly, hats off to that. The play calling, the things I broke down, the play where he motioned Jeremiah Smith in and play actions, hides him in the backfield, the man-to-man coverage is blown up, and then he wanders out with no one within 20 yards for a touchdown. Okay, that touchdown's one guy and one guy's only. Okay, like there's some stuff on film that he did this year that he earned his match, and he took a beating for a period. So I wanted these coaches to feel the love that they should after with the same intensity. I think there was a religious vibe to this team. That was, something we can't, go, unnoticed or whatever. And maybe that played a part in something going on. These kids just had faith in football, even that this was going to happen. I mean, it seemed like they were all talking like this is preordained. We all know it. It's all coming. We've seen lights and ray. I mean, it was really like it was really biblical. So I'll put that in there.
Mark, you mentioned the blueprint adding guys through the portal. That's important. But the blueprint also the last 2 years has try to keep your best players, as many of them as you can. Pay for the best players that you can possibly keep. Ohio State did a great job of keeping a lot of guys nobody thought they were going to keep. And to be honest, before that, Michigan kept a lot of their players. both these last two championship teams have been highly veteran with a lot of guys back and then adding some portal guys to it. It's not the recipe that some people tried originally, add 35 guys in the portal. That's not what Ohio State did, and it's not what Michigan did for that matter either.
And I think they want those fourth, fifth-year seniors mixed in too. There's definitely a recipe to make this
That's
work.
what I'm saying. Keep your best guys, and they're usually fourth or fifth-year guys.
But I want to address that one real quick. But it's got to be the right guys, and you kind of got to have some luck. And we were lucky in this respect the same way Michigan was. We had a lot of guys who were definitely pros, definitely. But we didn't have guys who were lock-solid top 15 picks. The guys we did have like that, they left. Okay? Guys who are in the top 15, they're leaving. What you need to keep is the guys who in the past may have been a second or third or fourth round pick, and then the money is actually comparable for that first year or two. So the Jack Sawyers of the world, the Lathan Ransoms of the world, all those types of guys are the ones you brought back.
JT Tuimoloau. Wow.
Right. I mean, you can go down the list, but that's who Michigan brought back as well, right?
Yep.
That depth of older dudes up front, that depth of veterans in the back. Yes, we did we did very well in the transfer portal, considering the fact if you go player for player. But the key and all the talk about the money, a lion's share of that money was spent on bringing back veteran guys who had experience. Even now, Josh Simmons, he wouldn't be coming back next year. People talk, he's going to be going in the top 15. Those guys don't come back. What you need is, like Ohio State, you've recruited so well across the board that your guys who are, like I said, Will Howard chose to come to Ohio State over accepting an invitation to the Senior Bowl, where he was told to be like a fourth or fifth round pick, most likely. Well, he's going back to the Senior Bowl this year. He's going to get picked a little bit higher because he went and got it done. Look, in basketball, Hunter Dickinson is on Kansas. I think he's like 30 years old. But he's a center, right? So he has more value in college than he does in the pros. I want to comment on a couple things you guys said and working backwards with the offensive line. Notre Dame's pressure rate is 44% traditionally, one of the highest in the country. Last night, 20%, lowest of the year. Okay, so it wasn't just that our offensive line played well. Go player for player on offensive line, and then remember how we started the season. Justin Fry, if we had never given him any crap and we just all kept our mouth shut and just judge on results, they brought in a transfer at center, and he won the Remington Award. He brought in Josh Simmons last year from California, and we all credited him for that. Keep in mind, he had recruited him at UCLA and knew him. Josh Simmons is going to be the first tackle taken in the draft. Do you think it's going to be hard? Do you think that helped with Ethan Onianwa when they went out to get him? And they could say, look, Ethan Onianwa, I'm reading, is now would have been a second or third round draft pick. He's coming here instead to play left tackle, which is tremendous. The Jeremiah play you mentioned was a very interesting play. Let me tell you something. You've seen it before. It is the touchdown play from Devontae Smith against Ohio State in the championship game. Mac Jones, former Alabama quarterback, tweeted it out, and he's right. So not only do they save that play, they saved it for the championship game in the exact spot that was used against us. So it was an ironic kind of little twist of the dagger there, which was great. And I think that's all I got for that.
Don't forget the play that, although it didn't turn out well, that Ibuka fumbled on. That was a really creative play that was well designed, and it would have pretty much put the game away had, unfortunately, the fumble not happened right at the end. But that was tremendous.
Another coach I want to give kudos to is Larry Johnson. This is 2 titles now he's gotten since people started negative recruiting him for his age. I want to go back and find, I'm not kidding you. When I went to Dallas for the championship game 10 years ago, and Bill, you can will agree to this, people then were getting on Ohio State recruits for going to play for Larry Johnson, thinking he was going to retire in the next year. That didn't happen, apparently. He's still there, and he's got 2 rings now since that crap started. So negative recruiting has not worked out well for those people. All right.
When you guys talk about the roster, and I know I always try to draw this parallel, it's going to be much like the NFL rosters. You're going to have your, the set franchise guys, but you're also not going to give enough credit to the veteran minimum guys, which Ohio State had a few of those. And I'm sure we could dig through the roster and say who were the guys being paid the least that did the most, and some of those offensive linemen that had to step in. But I think that's how this is going to be shaken down when you do the pie. The 4 or 5 pillars of stars that take those, big payments. And you're right, Dan. We got lucky. We haven't missed on a guy like that yet. We haven't brought someone in that hasn't lived up to expectations or has, been overpaid, or we feel like Caleb Downs might be one of the best players I've watched in a while on defense. I mean, there's a lot of great guys, but his speed, he might be under a 4.4. He covers more ground and comes from places. That play he made on the goal line a couple of weeks ago where he shot through, and it's unbelievable. It's uncanny. I mean, he has a tape this year of plays that make my jaw drop. He and Jeremiah Smith. Those two guys. It's funny, on the radio they were talking about how Ohio State, they think, had 16 guys who would be drafted this year in the NFL draft, and that didn't include Downs or Jeremiah Smith.
I heard someone say last night that they think the Titans would still pick a quarterback because they're so quarterback dependent, but that Jeremiah and Caleb would go 2-3 in the draft this year, which is incredible. And I said this yesterday when we were giving our Nate Beam kind of is where I'm at. He's Ed Reed, dude. I don't know if anyone got a chance to watch Ed Reed when they were coming up, and there's like this preternatural gift they have.
Yep.
There's, people say they have a nose for like Quinshon Judkins. When he broke free at about the 5, I said to my wife, touchdown, because that guy has a nose for the goal line. You knew he was getting that, right? It's got that different vibe to it there's something about Caleb Downs, like if you gave him some kind of football IQ test, that they'd be like, they think he was cheating or something, and then like he would answer a question, and they'd be like, no, you're wrong, and then you go research it and be like, oh, dude, he's actually right, we're wrong, kind of thing. The guy who corrects the teacher in class. And I said that was my number one feeling of confidence at the very end of everything was we have Ed Reed, and when games come down to these like 1 or 2 or 3 plays, those are the guys that make those plays, and they're always in the right spot. So
it's almost cliche, but the only way to see anything like Caleb Downs is to turn on the Discovery Channel when the cheetah goes after the gazelle, and it's just such a mismatch, and it's just something that ends so immediately. That's the way you feel when he goes after a ball carrier. You're like, there goes the cheetah. Good night, gazelle.
Go
ahead, Bill.
The NFL draft this year is going to be fun, maybe, for the Browns and Buckeye fans. Browns got the number 2 pick, and the Ohio State fans have got a lot of picks to watch. And you talk about Jeremiah and Downs going high. The poor Browns. When the Bengals had the number 1 pick, Joe Burrow's there. Now, the Browns need a quarterback, but if Jeremiah Smith was coming out and I'm the Browns, I'm taking him at number 2 because that makes my quarterback, whoever it is, a whole lot better when you got Jeremiah Smith out there, just like Jamar Chase helps Joe Burrow.
That final touchdown of his, isn't that the exclamation point of exclamation points? Like, you finally had the nuts to go one-on-one with Notre Dame. And you
mean the long pass again.
Yeah, and you effed around and you found out. Like, can we hold up, cover 0, man-to-man out there when Ohio State should just run the clock out here and kind of hand it off? And they call the go route. And it was like child's play. He had him by 3-4 yards. The ball, props in there. I mean, what an exclamation point for him. And just his ability where, like, that's why you would take him 2nd overall, because in a situation like that, he delivered.
Eric Turnbull is going to help me out here because I was just about to make this point. Don't forget, and like Bill was saying, when the draft does come around, not only are you going to have household name status on a lot of the guys because they had an extra month of TV time with everybody, which makes it easier for the media to then do stories on them. So you're going to get that. You're going to have a whole discussion of how these guys entered the playoffs at this ranking and exited it at this ranking. And Ohio State's going to get the credit for that too, right? And so everything's going to be proven out that you come to Ohio State, you can do the NIL game, but you also will be put in position to make the most money in the NFL. That has not changed, and that is tremendous.
Also, don't forget that the NFL draft is in April. What else is in April? The second transfer portal period. That NFL draft being in April, right when the second portal period opens, does not hurt the Buckeyes at all. In fact, it helps them.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to come. You start to feel like a Pollyanna here a little bit because everything you think about is so tremendous.
I could always put a damper on that.
I know we're not going to. That's why I'm going to mute you in about a sec here. All right, let me read you another. If you're hungry right now, Factor Meals. Listen, these advertisers that they've been with us all season. Like I said, they've been along for the journey. These are the advertisers that chose Ohio State and thought, you know what, I'm riding those guys out. So if they chose this week and they're advertising, that means they thought you were going to win the championship. Think about that for a second. This is targeted. So Factor Meals, thank you for supporting us. Thank you for being a champion. Are you ready to optimize your nutrition, Mark? Factor Meals. These are, you put them in the microwave 2 minutes. It is food snob redundant. You can't complain. I have food snobs in my house. They don't complain about this. Breakfast, grab and go snacks, smoothies. Eat smart with Factor Meals. To get started, go to factormeals.com/Bucknuts50 off. The code Bucknuts50 off to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping. That's code Bucknuts50 off at factormeals.com/Bucknuts50 off. 50% off plus free shipping for your first box. All right. Exactly. There's mention of Dietrich Sanchez and Devin. Anyone wanted to put in Devin for Igbinosun last night? I know I did. Good gosh. Stop grabbing the receivers. I'm not going to be bummed out. That's over with. Something I've never seen anything like it, actually, with Igbinosun. He led the nation in penalties like that. And then in the game, he loves to celebrate when he gets a penalty. I don't get it. Let me go back here and see if we have any other really good comments. Anything you guys had to say, comment, question? Hey, look, man. So Will Howard made himself some money. Not only is he going to be a legend in Columbus, he can come back and do whatever he wants for the rest of his life. You can tell me if I'm wrong. I think he solidified himself as an NFL quarterback. Mark, what do you think?
The cleanest pocket in the history of college football does a lot for that. And that's the only knock I would have on him. And that's not his fault, is because he threw from such a clean pocket to first-round receivers all year. That knock is going to be what's on other quarterbacks. You know, Alabama quarterbacks always had that knock. Anybody could stand back there behind that line at Alabama and complete passes. Will is exceptionally accurate, and I mean exceptionally accurate. He spins it very well. He doesn't have that NFL Justin Herbert drive the ball arm, you know, but it's pretty good. It's not. There's quarterbacks in the NFL like Will Howard, but I'm just giving you the knocks on him. But his stock, I'd have to believe, for the leadership and if you're an NFL guy and you think, hey, if we need a guy to come in and just run the team and get us through a few games early, he'll be brought in as a backup and groomed, I would have to assume. I don't think anyone sees him as, like the Browns would bring him in to, solve the right the ship. But yeah, I mean, pretty pure season, and a quarterback like that coming back to Columbus for years, enjoy it, kid.
Yeah, my son and I were debating last night during the game, especially when Will Howard was 14 out of 14. Who's making themselves the more money throughout this playoffs? Is it Jack Sawyer or is it Will Howard? And as my son rightly said, it's Jack Sawyer because he's going to go in the first round very possibly. And the first rounders get so much money. But Will Howard has definitely made himself some money with his playoff performance.
Other guys that deserve credit, and this is a good one right here. Donovan Jackson, man. You want to talk about a guy who came through. Can you imagine if the season started and someone had told you we're going to win the national championship and Donovan Jackson will be the left tackle? You'd have been like, what? Did the earth rotate off its axis? No. But that's incredible. I mean, you want to talk about depth? That's another thing. We talk about depth and recruiting. That's what they did. Yes, we talked about Ohio State and the offensive line throughout the season. They battled it. But once the playoffs started, I think they were pretty much the healthiest team. Texas was pretty healthy. But, I mean, Oregon had some injuries. The receiver didn't play against us. You know what I'm saying? Like
Notre Dame sure did.
I was going to get that. Notre Dame was missing their best defensive tackle, Riley Mills, and that had an impact. They did not have another guy to put in there that had the same girth. And that allowed them to run the ball a little bit more than they probably would have been able to. So really just incredible. The mixing and matching and the guys going with a 3-man rotation. Luke Montgomery, I spent all offseason thinking Luke Montgomery was a day one starter. I didn't see him for 9 weeks, and then he's kicking butt in the championship game. Talk about staying ready. Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, I was going to say the only thing you worry about now is the typical championship things, the banquet tour. I mean, like we're doing it today. We're praising them, and more money, more problems. You know, anytime you have the Super Bowl team, everybody on it wants to be paid like a Super Bowl champion. But other than that, it's a fun offseason for the Buckeyes. I mean, like you say, the draft is fun. Spring ball is going to be a blast. I mean, it's really sets the table for all the recruiting visits. Having, been at Michigan last year, I can't tell you how many places they hung up that national championship banner in every hallway, meeting room, football field, entrance, exit, bathroom. So look for the Woody Hayes Athletic Center to be redressed with paraphernalia. Like that stuff will be fun. There'll be like a Festivus atmosphere as you walk through that building for a while. But yeah, this is prime time Buckeyes.
We're getting a lot of great comments on here. Spring day starts in 20 days. I wish. Be better for the site, let me tell you.
Spring training for baseball starts in about 20 days, but not spring football quite yet.
Listen, Bill's pushing me to do more Indians content on here all the time, and I have to keep them off. So we're not going to do that. Question, Carson can come back. Correct. Sure can. I would expect Carson Hinsman to be back.
Did anyone else get nervous on that first drive Notre Dame had when they just right down the field, got the 4th downs? Or did you feel like when the quarterback was out of breath on the sidelines, that was everything they had? Because that was hats off to them. That was a opening drive of a game to kind of get a couple 4th downs. If they couldn't get momentum after that, and boy, I didn't think it would be a run of Ohio State after that either. I was really a little bit on the edge of my seat, like, whoa. And like I said before, the only chance they had was to shorten the game and take away those possessions. And I'm like, boy, that's page right out of that book to start the game. And then all Buckeye.
I actually thought it was kind of a sign that they didn't think they could beat them. Who would do that to their quarterback on the first drive of the game? That was insane to me.
I did have that thought too, like they're scared of their pass game, and we're gonna risk it all. Like we're gonna risk everything on the first drive. He takes a shot in the shoulder, our game's over. But you know what? We have no better option. We probably can't do it if we don't risk it all. So fair point there.
People, the offensive line, we've talked a lot about that. Think about maybe 7 or 8 weeks ago what we thought Ohio State's offensive line may look like next season. Now think about what it will likely look like. You've got Carson Hinsman coming back in all likelihood. At least I think he will too. And he was pretty darn good. You got Luke Montgomery, who, Dan, you mentioned played so well in playoffs, coming back. He was pretty darn good. Surreal and Shabola held their own. You got the middle of that line coming back that was pretty darn strong through these playoffs. Then you got 2 transfer portal tackles, Anianwa and Philip Daniels, coming in that I think are going to be pretty darn good. And you've got another portal period to go where they can add somebody. So all of a sudden, I think the offensive line is looking pretty darn good for next year, when we thought, this might be a big struggle next year, offensive line-wise.
If they get right tackle settled, I think they'll be better on the offensive line next year to start out. Now, we've just talked about how it's a war of attrition. But in terms of, as you were going through that, go Ethan Anianwa at left tackle, and I would really encourage everybody to go look into Anianwa. Why he was ranked by 24/7 and where he was in the portal makes absolutely no sense. There are people who thought he'd be picked in the second round of this draft coming up, which means he'd be higher rated than any. I don't think Donovan Jackson will get picked. We'll see. I mean, he'd be getting picked with Jackson this year. So, and then what are you talking about? Montgomery, left guard, Hinsman at center, Sierravelder, Shabola at right guard, and then right tackle. And listen, Josh Fryer was a tough kid. I do think they have a chance to do kind of a talent upgrade there long term. What do you think about that, Mark?
I think there could be. I think you're right. It could be a better offensive line. I don't want to get the cart in front of the horse right here. It's amazing to think how far that offensive line has come with that rotation. Like when I remember, I mean, it's funny. We could do a whole show on. Let's go back to week 4, look at the critique, and let's see how it actually panned out. There were people that hated that rotation. Where I kind of thought you kind of are forced into that if they're 3 equal, and let one of themselves play into the role, or all 3 of them live up to their billing. I mean, these kids came out of high school and were supposed to do this. This is what they were brought here to do. So I'm not really shocked that they ended up doing it. Maybe it didn't look the way we wanted. Maybe they didn't just get plugged in week 1. But yeah, I'm really on the Josh Fry thing, or Coach Fry thing. I think if we remember back, all he got criticized for was not being able to buy a couple offensive tackles.
Elite ones.
Yeah, I mean, those were the criticisms. We didn't land this kid. We didn't land that kid. There was never another problem. It's a new day and age. And I paralleled that to, do you get mad at, NFL line coaches because they can't bring in free agents? It's not how it works in the NFL. It's a money thing, and that's what we're dealing with here. So I'm going to agree with you about the offensive line and the upside coming there. I saw the Armstrong twins and some of these other guys. Competition breeds what we're seeing now and what we've seen, that it makes the talent pop, so to speak.
I'm reading my last ad here, and then we will finish it off by letting you guys have the floor. Any questions, comments, or concerns, get them in now. We'll talk about Quinshon Judkins and some other stuff. But Rocket Money, you've got plenty of subscriptions out there. Rocket Money is just a way to get yourself organized like a mug. Let's do this here. The start of a new year is perfect time to get organized, set goals, and prioritize what matters most: financial wellness. Thanks to Rocket Money, goals are achievable. All of your subscriptions right in one place. Cancel ones that you forgot about. I cannot tell you. I once had a job where they told me I had to fix the budget. I went in, found out they had about 50 subscriptions they didn't need. Fixed. You sign up for something, forget about it, and the trial period ends, then you're charged month after month. 85% of people have at least one paid subscription going unused each month. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/gameon today. That's rocketmoney.com/gameon. GAMEON. All right. Let's bask in some more glow here. Okay, question. Can McDonald fill both holes at defensive tackle? LOL. I don't know the answer to that. He's, of course, Kayvon McDonald. Played a lot last night, by the way.
I don't like
talk about rotation. Go ahead, Mark.
I don't like when those defensive tackles have to contain. See that early in the game, how we were crashing the ends, and the big fat guy was out on the edge trying to run and contain. It was like, what are we doing that for? Get that scheme out of here.
So you asked about the beginning of the game and the first drive, and it was terrible. However, that's not so uncommon in football that the other team scores a touchdown on their first drive and doesn't get another touchdown if you have the better defense, or at least one soon. It reminded me kind of the Indiana game where they started out and just went right down the field, kind of mashed it and scored a touchdown. And like I said, after that game, I wonder if Knowles on the first drive plays it a certain way to get you in your script to reveal what you really want to do. And so he gets you to kind of play as many cards as possible on that first drive so they can adjust, because the adjustment was pretty immediate. They clamped down on them really quickly on the second drive. The second drive, then you're talking like false start, snap hits the tight end in motion, desperation. You start to feel a little desperate on just their second drive. And then Ohio State, I know that Notre Dame mounted a comeback, but when you start out a football game with those 3 drives, you've taken the will of the other team in a lot of ways out of it. I can't get over how smooth they were on the first 3 drives. Now, they did let up. Bill, was there any point in time, William, where you and your son had your hearts in your throat a little bit?
I have to say, when it was the play right before the long pass to Jeremiah Smith, I was a little nervous there. And I thought that, Ohio State was so close to putting the game away not too long before that. But, I kept in mind that everything's got to go just right for Notre Dame to tie that game up, and it didn't. And one other 2 things that I'll wrap up with, Dan. After that first drive for Notre Dame, until their last play basically of the first half, between the end of that drive and that last play, they got 11 yards the rest of the time. 11 yards. That's pretty good. A pretty good job of making whatever adjustment Jim Knoll made to make. And second of all, I mentioned how happy I am for the coaching staff. Those guys really work hard, and again, they make a lot of money, but they're under intense pressure, just incredibly intense pressure. One guy we haven't mentioned in particular. How about all those people that wanted Mick Marotti out of here halfway through the season? I don't think those people may be still out there. At least they're talking. Mick Marotti, Ohio State looked pretty darn physical and did the job on both sides of the line of scrimmage throughout these playoffs. And Mick Marotti is he's the strength and conditioning coach. So hats off to him.
On my notes here, that's one of the unsung guys. How about the non-soft tissue stuff? You know how many teams go through hamstrings and guys sitting out and calf pulls and this pull? Man, we had a team that was not injured with those preventable type injuries. The flukes you can't avoid, but hats off to him with the unsung. I've seen strength coaches in the past get criticism, but he deserves it. And then Mark Pantoni, he's kind of like a long snapper. You just expect the mail delivered. You don't talk about them. It's routine until one goes awry, but he never goes awry, and he has one of the most organized staffs. From my own personal experience being at a game this year, the staff and the amount of personnel under his tutelage, his wing, under his control, whatever it is, the guys like that make this transfer portal easy. I mean, how far ahead of the Ohio State coaches are they in front of Bill and I on that stuff, where the day the portal opens, they've got 2-3 offers out. They've already watched all their film. They've already data sourced it. They've already done everything, where they are one of the top recruiting staffs. If you were going to, come to Ohio State and try to model your staff after, a group of people, I would be interviewing Mark Pantoni. And I'm surprised someone hasn't tried to steal him away, especially because he's got those Florida roots and really stealing him from Florida.
Mark, what are you doing?
Yeah. I mean, what am I telling the secrets for? But I mean, he really, the unsung hero of some of this stuff that goes on behind the scenes. And maybe
Not
I'm
anymore.
alluding I just told everyone why. Yeah.
That's called a sung hero now. Don't be doing that.
I think most people in the college football world know Mark Pantoni is as good as it gets. And we've talked about that more than once on this show. He is as good as it gets when it comes to his job.
Mark, you mentioned those soft tissue injuries. I don't know if anybody's ever watched any of the behind-the-scenes stuff when Mike Vrabel was with the Titans. They don't look fondly on soft tish guys. He's like, soft tish guys, get to the trainer early. It's not a compliment, okay? So what you're saying is as a kind of a toughness vibe in football, it was good that we didn't have a lot of hammies popping. Definitely.
And the training techniques of stretching and strength building. There's something
Whatever they're doing.
There's a science to all
Yoga
that.
and water and whatever.
Yeah. You name it. And he's got it dialed in, and don't mess with it once you get it dialed in on that type of thing.
Here's another group that deserves credit. Brian Schottenstein and the foundation. All year we hear about how much money was spent. Guess what it was? Money well spent. You cannot put a price on the championship. So every dollar spent, every donation made helped and will help going forward.
And I think
the teams and programs that were behind on NIL suffered. Yours didn't. And you can thank Brian Schottenstein in particular, Brian Hartline for the idea to get it going. But then the support of Buckeye Nation has been amazing. You've got guys like Mr. Bucknuts, kicking in. It was a big deal. And by the way, when you show you can pay for something and it works, guess what people want to do? Give money again. So this is kind of like snowballing down the hill.
That's one of the things I said at the beginning is it's real easy to go back to those people when they're in a good mood and they feel like what they did before worked, and you've got a blueprint that they can believe in. Really this thing is going to be rolling because of all these factors. Yeah, you know what? You're going to have to spend more next year, but you know what? It's going to be easier to get more because it worked.
Anyone miss a meal? This money's been out there, people. This is kind of like the money was there. The people that have the money to give to these foundations and stuff, that's not an issue. Ohio State has got plenty of money. Our alumni situation is tremendous, and it works. It worked, by the way. First 12-team champion, and it was the hardest road you could possibly go down. All right. Let's see if there's anything else. I get everyone's going to have issues with the quarterback sneaks last night. I kind of did too.
You know what? That's an empty the gun mentality. There is no tomorrow. It's the best play in our playbook. We're in a national championship. We're trying to finish this out in a way where we can, no problem at all. No problem at all with that. Because I really felt like you saw Notre Dame do it in the first quarter. We're talking about the fourth quarter to end it. Yeah, I don't think that happens in any other game but a national championship game.
There's people concerned about players and coaches leaving. Look, that's going to happen. This is what happens when you win. You get poached. The Jim Knowles one about him possibly leaving to be near his girlfriend and her family in Oklahoma, whatever, man. Once you win the championship, to me, if you want to go do that and just quality of life thing, go ahead. I said yesterday, I've watched the first 48, every single episode in Tulsa. I wouldn't be going there, but that's just me.
More money, more problems.
Yeah. Here's one question people want to know, Bill. Who's the quarterback of the Ohio State Buckeyes next year? William. And it would not be the season.
We're going to have to wait for next week.
I got to get that Bud Elliott graphic out. You're muted, William. No.
He said Julian saying.
He did say that.
Professional rip leader. Yeah.
They're going to compete, and you know what? They want those guys to stay. If you don't give them a reason to stay, if he knows he's not going to be a quarterback, then he probably.
Well, he said Julian saying, and I'm sure Tavian St. Clair and those other guys are going to have something to say about that. But let's worry about that in spring ball.
It's embarrassing, Terry. I've watched that show so much that my wife was like, "You shouldn't have invited those guys to your bachelor party." I'm on like I know the names of the guys on the homicide department. It's embarrassing. But yes, we are going to have guys hop in the portal. We may even have a few guys you didn't expect. They're going to poach our coaches. That's what happens. If anything, this has done, and I know it really hasn't, because the name of the site is Bucknuts, not Buck Rational Observers. We probably should be doling out the benefit of the doubt to this group and judge them on results. And if we need to use Justin Fry as the example, that guy's taken a lot of crap this year. Really, when his body of work, when you look back on it, was tremendous. What he did with that group and the mixing and matching. So just tremendous. We could go on here forever. We will be back on Thursday. We will shift it to recruiting and transfer portal, but really try and enjoy this. I know that some of you are probably in the group that has taken some fan abuse from the national media, given our dedication to our Buckeyes over time. I've said the people who don't understand or have taken shots at the Ohio State fascination, as it were, with the Michigan game, I understand. However, you just don't get it. And I'm not saying it's right, but the people complaining about our fascination with Michigan are the people from the outside. Those from the inside, i.e. Urban Meyer, it's just the way it is. Things didn't change. We just lost 4 in a row. That ain't going to happen much longer. We've had much better stretches. What we need to do now is appreciate the fact that Ohio State just completed, without question, the hardest gauntlet in the history of college football. One person I really trust told me this was the greatest month of Ohio State football in history. Maybe you don't feel like that right now because it was so emotional, but you're going to get a chance to bask in the glow. Every time you turn on the internet now, every time you turn on your TV, it's going to be another person talking about how great your Buckeyes are. Enjoy it. We appreciate you guys being there for the ride all season. This is not the end. Kind of is with the title. We'll be back on Thursday to get it rolling again. Keep it locked on to Bucknuts. Bill's phone never turns off. Have a good one, Nutters.